Over the course of the last few months, I've been interviewing industry practitioners to see what they understand by digital transformation. My guests have offered various opinions and ideas. However, the one thing they all agree on is that data is central to everything. Browse the trade media to see the proliferation of articles declaring the importance of data. Even the FCA has declared their ambition to become a data-led regulator. Recently, I've heard data referred to as the new capital, the new oil of the digital economy, and a firm's most valuable asset. So what's the big deal with data? Why should firms prioritise it? And what can firms do if their data is not in good shape? To answer these questions and more, I'm delighted to have with me today Jamie Phillip, partner of Saltus Group. Jamie.
Good afternoon, Roland.
Good afternoon, and how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, and thank you for coming up from the smog to spend a day in sunny Oxfordshire, not
in the rain.
Yeah, how's the journey up?
Wet, thanks, Roland, but got here.
Well done, my man, well done. Well, look, thank you very much indeed for investing the time today. I'm sure this is going to be a really interesting and exciting chat.
Let's see.
So Jamie, before we kick off the sort of the meat of the conversation, data, tell us a little bit about you and your journey with Saltus and what you've been doing the last couple of years.
Saltus was set up in 2004 by two guys who spun out of the institutional world, trying to bring some of the rigor that they saw to the private client world. And we started off life as a private client fund manager. And I joined in 2011. And at that point in time, the business was just getting ready to pivot away from some of the previous strands it had operated in before running an investment trust to focus on IFA channels ahead of RDR.
Yeah.
And so it was quite an interesting time to be joining. We did that successfully for a number of years. And we still got a number of loyal supporters from that, but it was quite an unfulfilling experience. There were a number of firms there who were just disappearing from the market. They were getting bored, and it was a leaky bucket. Although we felt we were doing a really good job for our clients, we didn't know them. And they were just finding that they preferred platform A over platform B, and the assets would just disappear. And it was quite frustrating. So I think at that point, we had our Damascene conversion, and we thought if you can't beat them, join them. And we bumped into a chap called Phil Bevan, who's still with us today.
I do.
And Phil was our first financial planner, and probably the reason we're here today.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It was probably one of the best decisions we made as a firm on that period.
Yeah.
We grew successfully from the £30 million of private client management funds we were running in those days, and flipped the relationship. It seemed like a bold move at the time, but flipped the relationship totally on its head. So we led with financial planning.
That's interesting.
And I think it's interesting to see now that actually that's 10 years later, that's a journey that a lot of these traditional private client fund managers are on, but they're struggling.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I've actually had a number of conversations here with some of those firms who have now put centre stage and front of stage, actually, the whole financial planning piece, because it makes sense, doesn't it?
It totally makes sense, yeah. It's almost embarrassing to say now, but it took us a long time to really recognise who owns that client relationship. Whilst nobody owns that client relationship, that financial advisor is that person's trusted shepherd through life. Yeah. It's really simple.
And that's the point, isn't it? It's that trusted relationship which makes all the difference for the consumer.
Absolutely. That's why we're all here.
And we'll talk a little bit more about your growth in a few minutes. But what has been fascinating as a supplier of services to Saltus is your growth has been meteoric as a result of that pivot, I guess.
I think it has. Yeah, I think it has. As we stand here today, we manage just over £3 billion, manage and advise on £3 billion for our clients. It's been an amazing growth story. In some ways, the business is very similar to the one I joined over a decade ago. Yeah. Just a bit bigger and more sophisticated, I would say, and a bit more grown up. Yeah. And we employ about 35 advisors today, so they're all looking after rather large books of clients' assets. Yeah. And we've got a culture that we're really proud of. Like I say, it's really not changed that much over the last 10 years.
Yeah, well done. I think it's fantastic. It's an industry success story, isn't it? So in my introduction, I talked about the importance of data.
Yes.
All right, and that being the firm's most valuable asset, as I mentioned. So obviously your attitude, I think, towards data has shifted pretty fundamentally over the course of the last few years. So what is the big deal? I mean, why should firms prioritize it?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think as an industry, it's probably worth saying that we are very susceptible to fads. In a former life, I was a fund selector, and I remember there was a time when you couldn't see a fund pitch book without somebody talking about big data or AI. Yeah. I think it's probably a little bit like ESG today, although it's probably not. Greenwashing is probably one for another day and not for this forum. But I think actually, as we sit here today, data really is the new oil. It's not just a fad. I think there are lots of technology solutions out there that are brilliant eye candy, but without the oil, the data, they are just that. They are just a fad. Yeah. And I think it is imperative for firms to really focus on their data strategy moving forward. So what does that mean? It brings many things to a business, but I don't think many of your audience would disagree with me that saying actually client outcomes must be front and center of mind when talking about data. So how does data help with that? Now, in a number of ways, I think we as a nation, it's no surprise here, we're under-advised. And whilst at Saltus, we are probably known in the industry as a high net worth specialist, we also manage successfully lots of smaller clients and who need the advice most, quite frankly. And I think that's something we're really proud of. And how do you do that? I think data helps you to manage those clients more efficiently. Mm-hmm. And so really client outcomes can be brought about and furthered through efficiency. So I don't think there's anything wrong with these technology solutions in the market, focusing on advisors, making them more efficient, quite frankly, doing what they're good at and spending more time with their clients, focusing solely on delivering clients' outcomes, rather than some of the traps that we fall into as humans, which is kind of, as I say, zero value add to a client. So in addition to efficiency, I think the key thing we've seen is risk reduction, having a handle on your business. It is key. And then finally, in time, even revenue opportunities, because whilst focusing on a data strategy, it's a cost center to start with before you get those benefits. And I think it's easy to shy away from focusing that in those early stages because of that, because you don't have that demonstrable output at that point in time. But we're now well advanced on our journey and we're really reaping the benefits of that. So, I mean, clearly you recognised early on, I remember having conversations with Tosh about, you become data scientists and it's how you surface that data and leverage the value from the data. But you recognised early on the value of the data and you manifest that, I think, for the benefit of all with your Advisor BI pack, Abby. Yes. So what's that about? Tell us about Abby and how Abby has made a difference to your business. So Abby, as it is affectionately known, I think we've got you guys to thank for that, actually. I think when we saw some of your early stage Curo BI packs, we really could see the potential. And I think some of the unenlightened might kind of deem that to be eye candy, but I think it's far more than that. Like probably many of the people listening to this, we were slaves to spreadsheets. Slaves to spreadsheets. And when you're dealing with a lot of data, particularly old Microsoft Excel, it was a painful experience. So we saw the opportunity initially to leverage BI to kind of aggregate all of our disparate data strategy. And through that process really helped us think meaningfully about where data was coming from, where it was maintained. And it's kind of known in this as low code, no code, certainly from the front end and the visualizations. I really do think that statement. But what Abby is, it's a 360-degree view of all, bringing in data from Curo, our portfolio management system, our platform, SIP provider, into one spot for the benefit of the advisor. And the benefits have been really tangible. What we found is we've got, or previous, if we look back a couple of years, if we're being honest, we probably had an advice force who was maybe ever so slightly nervous about speaking to their clients, because they didn't have information at their fingertips. What BI and Abby has allowed us to do, it is arm those advisors I mean, they were going and seeing clients with one arm tied behind their back. They didn't have the information at their fingertips. Yeah. And therefore it meant that they were reluctant to proactively contact them. So conversely now, we feel like we've got a more confidence advice team. Any data that lives within our ecosystem, we're able to bring into Abby within a matter of days or hours and present it in a very visual format, paring back all the guff that might exist in the system to the stuff that really matters to serve as a client.
And what it allows you to do is drill down, doesn't it, to actually, in many cases, the actual record within Curo, which is extraordinary. So if you're able to find issues with your data, you can correct it.
Absolutely. I think, our advisors have their iPads out on the road, so most of the time they're just pressing big buttons on an app, but you're quite right, you can drill straight through to that, and the kind of interaction with Curo is really powerful for that relationship between the support team and the advisors as well.
That's fascinating. I mean, the whole point, I suppose, of data is that if you can surface it in a way that provides meaningful and actionable business intelligence, and that, of course, is what Microsoft Power BI is designed to do. And, being in the Microsoft ecosystem, it does connect easily. So Curo becomes its own data warehouse in a way.
It really does, yeah. I mean, we actually now incidentally have built our own data warehouse for various reasons. However, in those early days, it was a quick route to market to kind of create basically a data warehouse. And I think now we're really leveraging that. So we have many multi-layered reports that sit all across the business. Yeah. And I think particularly tools like that, it helps people engage with the data rather than the kind of turgid, manual, flat files that we're all used to reviewing and miss things through.
Well, it brings everything to life, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does, yeah. I would go so far to say it's been a game changer.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. And I think it's really lovely from a technology provider to see the value that data delivers back when deployed in a way, using tools that are, it's just brilliant stuff, really, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's really, really interesting actually to see the number of views. I think we had 16,000 in the first period when we launched it. But what was fascinating was that it wasn't the demography that you might have thought it would have been engaging with an app on their iPad. It was actually our older advisors who really fell in love with it, because legacy back office systems, which I wouldn't count Curo in one, is one that they've kind of stayed away from and actually not been allowed near. And maybe some of the younger advisors are able to navigate the system and self-serve. But for the slightly older, if I can be so blunt, advisors, it's really been a game changer, and they're its biggest fans.
And that's the key. It's putting in, somebody in control, and it's providing a way that they can get access to the information they want really simply. Yeah. So historically, the industry, I know you've already referred to this really, but historically the industry has not been great with data, has it? It's not great at collecting it nor managing it, probably because for a lot of firms using those legacy back office solutions that you're talking about, they don't have access to the data anyway. And so they have to compile stuff manually. It takes forever, and then the output is probably suspect because they can't rely on the data on the input. So there are going to be lots of firms whose data is not in good shape, and I'm sure as part of your journey of acquiring firms, you come across them. But what practical things do you think you could offer up to those firms looking to make more or the most out of their data, in fact?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to pick out a couple of the points you say there. I think you are right to highlight some of the providers in this. I think they've got a lot to answer for. We've been very vocal with the regulator about this subject, and I think barriers to exit in the market that they are too high, and it is difficult to move. But what practical steps can I offer? I think the first thing to recognise, back to some of my earlier points, is that any digital transformation journey, it is a journey, and rather than I wouldn't even call it a project. It's a journey, and you've got to be in it for the long haul. So I like to kind of think about it as building a house. So lots of the technology solutions that are touted in the market, they're almost like the soft furnishings of the house or the decorating, and you wouldn't even dream about putting those in until you've dug the foundations. Yeah. Done the plumbing, done the wiring. And that's really what a digital transformation journey is all about. So where would I start? Firstly, start with a blank piece of canvas without any legacy back office systems. I think that might be a privilege afforded to few, but useful nonetheless as a thought experiment. What would you like your data to look like? And I think it doesn't hurt to get a big whiteboard up and draw it all out. Most importantly, I think from the top down within the business, you need to have stakeholder engagement and support. It's a big exercise, and from the top, they're worried about the size of the check they're going to have to write, and maybe at the bottom end, they're worried about their job security. And truth be told, it doesn't necessarily have to cost too much. You can substitute OPEX for CAPEX, sorry, vice versa. You really can. I mean, it's a lot of blood, sweat and tears, but it can be done. And then at the lower end, actually, I mean, our watchword at Saltus has always been trying to be a fintech firm from the inside out. And what we mean by that is trying to get humans to do the jobs they're best at and computers to do the jobs they're best at. And we fall foul of that too often. There's a lot of zero value add tasks that doesn't benefit the business, doesn't benefit the clients, and quite frankly, I don't think anyone enjoys, that actually computers are better to do. And it really is the point. I would also, on that journey, I think it's very important to measure. So you've got to measure where you started from and where you are today. And I think focusing on those quick wins, because on this journey, it's really important to signpost at various stages just how far you've come, so you can still maintain that motivation to get up Everest, because it does feel daunting at times, but trust me, as you know, I'm preaching to the converted here, it really is worth it. In addition to that, I think you really need data champions within the business. I mean, I think, again, if I look back at Saltus's kind of key decision makings over the years, another big one was the creation of a data team. And I had my time in there. It was really fulfilling. I think at Saltus, being a geek is a term of endearment. And data is cool at Saltus. It's run by a wonderful manager and a wonderful team there who are kind of very popular within Saltus. But key to that as well is the democratization of data, because in those early stages, carving out that role, it's very easy for them to be a pseudo data entry team. And it's more than that. And so it's really key about having that democratization of data across the business and all the governance that comes with it.
Well, if you see the benefits, the end game, and you see the value that delivers back, then that in itself is reward enough, isn't it? It then motivates people to do more. And I think that's the point. Once you've got your data into a great place, held in a structured way that gives you access, then actually there's so much more that can be done. Not only through reporting, but through automation, through the creation of a review document super efficiently, all that stuff. The whole world becomes your oyster in many respects.
Yeah, it really does. And I think we're now so far through our journey, and we've got that stable platform. There's those foundations, to use my house example, that we're really starting to leverage it and put in all those soft furnishings and monetizing all of that effort from a long time ago. And I think clients benefit and our advisors benefit.
Well, it demonstrates control, doesn't it? And, I think your comments earlier about change being scary for people and people worrying about their jobs, actually, if you can liberate people, it means that they can do more engaging, valuable stuff rather than the tedious, boring stuff, which actually nobody appreciates or values. And so it changes people's lives in a very profound way.
They can speak to clients. Exactly. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Totally. I love it. So that was really interesting. I love the house analogy. And so what's the future? I mean, we've already touched on the fact that you've grown beyond recognition. Obviously, since you started using Curo, clearly. But, what's the future? Where does Saltus end up?
Yeah, I think, Roland, we really have. I mean, we have been the beneficiaries of Curo. We stumbled into it actually through an acquisition. And it was really surprising, actually, because in some ways they were a very backward-looking firm with 150 different providers spread all over the place. And that's how we really cut our teeth on data years ago. But they had stumbled into Curo, which was very forward-looking relative to they were. But acquisitions is a key part of our strategy. We have welcomed several high-quality firms this year, and we expect to do the same next year. So in addition to, I think there are core strands, in addition to focusing on our organic growth and our technology, we're going to welcome 8 new graduates this year, which is really exciting. Speaking to the very first graduate trainee that Saltus had, with a slightly less defined graduate plan then, that still nonetheless stood me in good stead, then that's really exciting. And what is probably the most exciting thing for this year is the rollout of our Saltus Partnerships program, which is something we're really excited about. And it's to appeal to a whole different type of financial planner, because we are well aware, being practitioners ourselves, that it's very difficult sometimes setting up a financial planning firm, and there's lots of twists and turns, and sometimes it would be good to have a little bit of assistance. Yeah. And I think what that means for potential new partners is many different things. It could be a bit of growth capital if you're looking to grow your business, some funding to take control of your business, particularly those with with self-employed advisors, which are often problematic for advisors, whether they want to stay on as self-employed advisors or to put in place a buyout model for them. And it is hopefully something where we can provide an a la carte menu to advisors where they pick and choose. And I know it sounds too good to be true, but we're really excited about this, and I think there'll be a big part of our future.
I think it's really interesting because you're not the first to speak like this. And I think what's really interesting is the fact that those more forward-thinking firms are beginning to understand that actually there are a lot of quality advisors out there who are bogged down doing the wrong things and they can't do what they love doing. Yeah. And so if they're able to liberate them by providing the support structure so they can go and do their thing and make sure that everything else is managed for them in a very coherent and well-defined way, that begins to sort of chip away at the advice gap that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, really does. And I think, look, there are lots of models that have attempted to do this to various success and various networks in the past. But yeah, I haven't met many advisors. I've met one advisor who likes hanging around in the back of a practice management system, but they're quite few and far between. And so, yeah, really empowering the advisor to go out and do what they're good at. Yeah. And I mean, at Saltus, we never forget that it's your business, it's your clients, they're loyal to you. Yeah. And quite frankly, that's what you should spend all your time doing. Yeah. Servicing and helping address this advice gap.
Fabulous. Jamie, that was fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for your time today, and looking forward to seeing this on the website.
Absolutely.
And of course, mapping the continued success of Saltus Group, which has been fantastic. So congratulations.
Brilliant. Thank you, Roland.
Fabulous. Thank you.